Ladies and gentlemen, yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, people of Tokyo, I'd like to apologize for my behavior and what I did. I am so sorry. I got a little carried away. But if you'll take me back and accept my apology, I will do everything I can to protect you and to,
You killed my family, bro.
Sorry, kid. I didn't mean to,
Sorry's not gonna bring my family back. Come on.
Okay, maybe this will cheer you up. Just listen to the SuperCaZt as it will review Gojira 1954, also known as Godzilla. Check it out on the SuperCaZt.
And welcome back to the SuperCaZt. I'm your host, the man who put the super in SuperCaZt, the Superfosh. And as always, I am honored to be joined by my buddy and co-host,
Steve Z, the man who put the Z in SuperCaZt, or as I'm known on Twitter as Godzilla, for good reason too.
If you hadn't figured it out, if you hadn't read what the video you just clicked on was, we are talking about Gojira. And that's how we're going to refer to him this entire episode. We're not going to say the American version now, because I feel like that's disrespectful in a way. But yeah, this is a movie that it's been too long that I should have seen this film. We're talking about the original Godzilla made in 1954, and it is a classic. And I think I'm selling it short even saying that, because this movie it's important on a lot of levels, as we'll get into. But I am joined by a guy that is probably close to a Godzilla expert as you can probably get. Is that overstating it a little bit, or what do you think, man?
I dabble. I mean, I don't have my PhD yet, but I definitely have a master's. I mean, I've been into Godzilla since I was in second grade, so he's just been a big part of my life.
Do you remember what got you into Godzilla? Like, you remember how you got into it? Or him? Whatever?
I remember sitting down and watching TNT Monster Vision, and I caught the end of this Godzilla movie. It was Godzilla versus The Thing, the American version, and I saw the last 15 minutes of it. I was like, that was pretty awesome. And then all of a sudden another Godzilla movie started, and I got to watch it from start to finish. I was a fan from that point forward.
And then you came over to my house, and for some reason we had Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
Yeah. And I watched that one.
And I still don't know how we got that. I still don't know where that came from.
It just came from the stars.
It did. But we are talking about the original. Obviously, Godzilla has kind of made a little bit of a comeback in the MonsterVerse. That I think is dadgum entertaining, by the way. I think Kong vs. Godzilla is one of the best blockbuster films. I thought it was really good. So, but we're going all the way back to 1954 when Godzilla started, and let's talk a little bit about the history. And like I said, I've got a PhD in Godzilla, friend. So go ahead, man, fill us in.
All right, so Godzilla in a nutshell. Here we go. So. It's a series of films that starts way back in 1954 with this one we're about to talk about. He's taken many forms, different tones, different sort of eras even. Like the show era is the first one. It's the first 15 films. And it's all over the place. You have films that are made for adults. You have films that are made for little kids. And you have some that are just kind of in the middle. You even have some psychedelic films like Godzilla vs. Hedorah. So it's all over the place. It's a lot of fun. But this one, as we'll talk about in a little bit, it's not so much fun. It's just really good. But you also have the Heisei area, you have the Millennium era, and now, as you said, we have the MonsterVerse. So this is a series of films based around this character that is just, to me, he's an embodiment of cool. Just because he's the ultimate destructive creature that
Right.
nothing can get him. And
Yeah.
it's just really amazing just to see this creature just go and wreck things, save the world, do whatever he can, whatever the film calls for, pretty much. But I really don't know what makes me like Godzilla so much. It's one of those weird things that's on a psychological level, some deep subconscious thing. It's sort of like, I guess, David Bowie or something like that, where he, just the first time I heard music from him, I was just like, I would love David Bowie. Same thing with Godzilla. As soon as I saw an image of Godzilla crushing buildings and stuff, I'm like, I love Godzilla. So that's where my thing is. But let's get into what makes this one different and why it can be. It has to be on a shelf all its own.
Godzilla, king of the monsters, alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror to wreak vengeance on mankind.
Godzilla, king of the monsters, it's alive,
A gigantic beast
stalking the earth, crushing all before it,
in a cyclonic cavalcade of electrifying horror.
raging through the streets on a rampage of total destruction.
Godzilla, king of the monsters,
Incredible titan of terror.
wiping out a city of 6 million in a holocaust of flame.
And I probably should say this too. I did not grow up watching this version. I grew up watching on my crappy little
Yeah.
VHS from, I think it was some Warner company. I can't remember. It was like Good Time Video. It was Godzilla, King of the Monsters,
Yeah.
starring Raymond Burr, or as you know him, might know him as Perry Mason.
Yeah.
And basically, it's the Americanized version of this film, where I guess the producers that released it in America decided we can't have an all Japanese cast. Let's just throw an American in there. Say he's a news guy. He's covering this thing, and they shot a few scenes. I think
Yeah.
he only I was there shooting for like 2 or 3 days, and they just recut the movie.
Right.
They took out a lot of scenes. They re-edited it. They made the love triangle really subservient. I mean, like, it was barely part of the movie, and it's just a watered down version. They took out a lot of the darkest stuff, and definitely anything that made America look bad. And it was pretty good for the time. Like, I remember when I would rank my Godzilla films back then,
Right.
it was up there. I still liked it because, I mean, even in its present form, there were certain scenes that are just so powerful, even in this watered down version. They kind of cut through that. Especially the scene where Godzilla's
Right.
destroying Tokyo and there's that fire going behind him. He's just lumbering around. Or that scene with the choir singing that remembrance song and just that powerful moment. So all that stuff stuck out still. But finally I got to see this original version in 2004 when it was released on DVD for the first time. And it just blew me away.
Yeah, it's one of those films, and I've watched it now twice, and it's a really interesting film because, and I know you'll get into the backstory and everything, why even he was created, but it really, I think, painted a really interesting picture of what it would be like if something of his scale, came on the scene. And obviously, it's sort of talking about the way the atomic bomb, and basically saying that Godzilla is like an atomic bomb kind of thing, because the Japanese did not want an atomic bomb. Is that correct? Am I saying that right?
You're mostly correct. He is the embodiment of the atomic bomb. He is,
Right.
That's why he's indestructible. You cannot
Right.
destroy the bomb.
Yeah.
And he's just that destructive. So it's a big part of that. He's basically like their manifestation of their horror for what they went through. And I think the atomic bomb is a big part of it because it's the end all be all. Once that drops, everything's done. So yeah, Japan's the only place where that's been used on people. But I think just from a historian standpoint now, or I shouldn't say historian, as a
Sure.
person who studies, I mean, the World War II a lot, I mean, you can't take away the firebombing that happened in Tokyo too, that killed more people than the
Right.
atomic bomb. So, I think it's just the whole war collective, and just the trauma that they went through as a people. That's what
Gotcha.
it's all about. And Godzilla's there, and that's why it's a very terrifying film from that standpoint. And it's not only based off of that, but it's based off of something that was in the news right before this film came out. There was some atomic bomb testing in the Pacific Ocean, and the Americans were testing out this new H bomb. And they warned everybody, said, hey, don't be in this blast radius, it could be bad. And they did it, and it ended up being way stronger than they thought. So, unfortunately, there were some fishermen that were out there in their boats, and they got caught in this. I mean, they weren't obliterated, but they got serious radiation poisoning. As in, their teeth fell out, their hair fell out before they even got to shore. And all of a sudden, they have all these tumors growing on them and stuff like that. So, it's scary stuff. And this traumatized them yet again, because the Americans were like, we weren't testing any bombs. And that just kind of scared Ishiro Honda, who is the director of this film, and he's like, I need something that kind of represents this. So he created this character, and it's just very terrifying when you put it from that real world standpoint.
Now, all the movies that I've seen featuring Godzilla, it's always this one creature. But does he come from... I mean, is he really by himself? Is there only one Godzilla? Is there, a family? Like, has there ever been any explanation on his origins within the story?
They kind of explain it in this one a little bit. They say he's a prehistoric creature that has been mutated by the atomic bomb testing.
Right.
And that's what woke him up from his slumber. He was basically asleep all this time. And I guess they do add another one in the second one, because a year after this one came out, they made a pretty bad sequel, Godzilla Raids Again, and just randomly Godzilla's back from the dead. So I guess it's one of those deals where they're just like, oh, there's another one. He was in Antarctica. So there are other ones, but at this point, as far as this film is concerned, it's just one. But I guess I'll get into the plot a little bit.
Yeah, sure, man. Let's go.
It starts off, and it's basically, it starts from the get-go. I mean,
yes, it does.
I think even the credits set the tone.
Yes.
Yeah, the credits, if you're not familiar with this film, starts off, you just hear Godzilla's roar after some stomping.
And that literally scared me. I'm not even joking. I was sitting there with my headphones, and not these, my good ones, and I'm sitting there ready to come, and all of a sudden I hear, I can't even do the roar. But I was like, okay, that's what's going on. All right, I applaud that. You don't get time to get comfortable.
No, and before you know it, you got your Akira Ikefube score playing, that dun 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 dun.
Yep.
And it's just, you're sucked in, and those credits are so intense. And then it opens up on the sea, and you're like, okay, maybe this is gonna be okay. But 5 seconds into the film, that boat gets destroyed, and these guys were just out there chilling, playing the guitars, their harmonicas. They got obliterated by Godzilla, and it just keeps happening. All these ships keep getting destroyed. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody can find answers. And there is this one island nearby Edo Island, and they have a theory, because at least the old people do. I like that little touch there. The old man's like, it's Godzilla, come on. And sure enough, it is. He shows up at the island while their scientists there investigating, and oh man, from then on, he's just got his sights on just civilization. He's kind of angry at the whole world, it seems. And he comes in, pretty much the rest of the film is destroying Tokyo. And I should say there's definitely a great human story along with this. There's the story of Dr. Serizawa, who's created this oxygen destroyer, which is this thing, as it implies, it destroys all oxygen in the water. And he's been betrothed to Emiko. Only problem is Emiko, she doesn't love him. She just views him as a friend, and she's in love with Ogata. So it's kind of crazy, because we have this love triangle. We also have my favorite character, Dr. Yamane, who's basically, he's torn because he wants to save Godzilla, but he's also like, man, Godzilla just might kill us all. But I guess that might be the plan for nature. I don't know. So it's just a really fascinating film. It gets really dark at times, and it's very compelling. So I guess let's get into what you liked about it.
That's the thing. Like, you almost feel sorry for Godzilla. I mean, maybe not, but it's like he's a creature. He's just trying to, find a home, and he runs into all these people. And I heard somebody say on a thing last night I was watching afterwards, where it's like we're ants and he's the foot kind of thing, And obviously he's destructive because he's afraid of what might get him, so he's trying to just defend himself. So, I guess he's sort of the villain. I just kind of have a heart for this guy because, again, he's just a creature doing instinctively what he knows to do, and you can't reason with him. You can't go, Godzilla, you can't do that, because he's Godzilla, kind of thing. So it's an interesting character to say the least, because on the one hand, he is this destructive force of nature, but on the other hand, he's still an animal. He's still a creature trying to defend himself. So it's sort of an interesting character to view. Is that how you kind of see it too?
Yeah, that's a great way of interpreting him. He's a force of nature.
Yeah, definitely.
He's just doing what he knows to do. And sometimes it's eating all the fish he can. Sometimes it's destroying boats. It's just anything that comes in his territory, he's going to take it out. And it's really, I'm glad you brought this up. The only reason he comes to mainland Japan is because the humans decided to drop those depth charges on him.
Yep.
Yeah, they just try to bomb him while he's asleep. And he's like, that's not cool. I'm going to come and get you guys now. So, yeah, he's very compelling character. I guess that's why I'm drawn to him, and that's why the ending of the film is very powerful to me, but I'm not going to get into that yet.
Right. And by the way, guys, I don't think we have to say this, but this is going to be heavily spoiled because it is a film that's over 60, 70 years old, so go check it out. I've seen it twice now, and I'll probably see it a couple more times just because it's that good, but so I just want to throw that out there in case anybody was not wanting to be spoiled.
Yeah. We can't spoil everything, but we will definitely spoil the big things. But I guess we'll get into sort of the human aspect for a little bit. So this is a part that I did not get as a kid, is the sort of the political aspect of this. I don't know if it's funny or it's sad, but the politicians, the people, they just can't get along and get on the same page when it comes to this giant monster.
I think this is a very human thing because I don't think that's ever changed in our society or any society really, where politics really split people. And when you have a thing like this, I mean, you're going to get different ideas, and some people want to blow him up or do something, and then some people are like, well, he's just an animal, and you have all these different views. And I found those discussions kind of interesting in this film, because especially with it being in a society that I'm not used to, and people I'm not used to, and so it was really interesting to see that even in that environment, it's kind of like here where we still debate on everything pretty much.
Yeah. And it's really neat because, like, even Dr. Yamane, he's torn himself. Like, he wants to preserve this. Right. He gets into it with he's not his son-in-law yet, but his daughter's boyfriend, I guess, the Ogata. He gets into it with him just because he's like, you need to shut up. You're in my house. And I'm saying Godzilla should be preserved. I mean, they get heated at that dinner table. And then Emiko's just... Emiko's just like, Dad, just calm down. And she's just like, oh God, just shut up. And it's just really cool how human they are. And that's probably my favorite thing about this one is, and this is why I like the other ones too, because the others are basically comic book characters. But this film really strives for realism. And I think it accomplishes that very well.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think the the discussions they have and the feelings. I mean, it would be a difficult situation, and I hope to never find myself in that kind of a situation. But it makes you think, and it's like, how would I feel? What would I do? And what would I think? And what would I be in favor for? Because you got this thing that could pretty much crush us all, but if we kill it, how's that going to turn out? It's just it's a really interesting thing to watch and observe, and I think these characters, for a movie that's kind of unbelievable, I think these characters are very, very real.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's very, I've said this several times, it's very realistic in that approach. And sort of like we were talking about the other film, it's like the characters are kind of what the viewers kind of like attached to, and that helps suspend the suspicion of belief. If it is sort of based in reality, and we can kind of buy that this giant monster's coming and destroying everything.
That's right.
But I guess let's get into the effects a little bit. So they're created by this guy named Eiji
Right.
I can't always say his name correctly except when I'm on recording. Tsuburaya. But he's a genius in my opinion, just because he wanted to make the stop motion because he was greatly inspired by the original King Kong.
Yeah.
Like he watched that and he was just like, this is why I need to do in my life. So he wanted to do that, but problem is there's a time crunch. You know how long stop motion takes. It takes forever. So they were like, we don't have the budget. We don't have the time. Figure something out.
Right.
So that's when he's like, okay, let's get a guy in a suit. Let's film it at a different frame rate. Make him look really big. Shoot him at different angles. And it'll work. And I think it's very effective.
Yeah.
I think in this film in particular, Godzilla feels really big.
Yeah, I like that it wasn't stop motion because a human or a live person can really make something look more alive because they can move a certain way that you can't really make a stop motion figure move because there's so much herky-jerky kind of movement where you don't get that with somebody in a suit. Having said that, I really feel for the guys that had to wear the suit because that had to be hell. I was not jealous of that guy at all.
Yeah, so think about your mascots and people like that. They're wearing those big old heads and everything. It's really hot.
Yeah.
This guy that did this is wearing something that probably weighs 75, 80 pounds and can't really breathe in it too much and really hard to move around. And the director says action, saying you got to go be Godzilla, be believable. And I'm sure he was just like, in between takes, he's just holding his head between his knees and just, I can barely breathe in this thing. Give me some water.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely really cool. And I really like this one because they go above and beyond to make the miniatures look really good. The tanks, they sometimes look like toys, but it's just limitations. You got to realize they did not have the huge budget that like a Hollywood film would have had this time.
Yep.
But it's really cool, and I think this one really sets the groundwork because you would think that in the sequels the models and the suits would get better, but they kind of don't. Their budgets get worse, and sometimes they just reuse footage and things like that. But this one they went all out. I think we got to throw in one little critique, and that's if you look at it from now's standpoint. Some of the shots don't look the best. That's just what it is. You got to sit down and realize it's a 1954 film. It's in black and white. So the close-ups of Godzilla don't look the best, but I'm willing to suspend my disbelief at those moments.
Yeah, same here. I think the story is so good, and I think that everything around Godzilla, I think you're just so invested into everything that it kind of looks hokey, but you're like, I'm still enjoying it. I don't think it takes away any from the story and what the filmmakers are trying to do to tell the story. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think one thing that helps hold all of it together is the score.
Yes, this was probably my favorite part of the film. because I really think it's perfect. Like, it really, I love the different ways they use the music throughout the film, and even at the start. I mean, we mentioned the roar at the start, but even the music that follows that is just, it's amazing. It's a really, if you guys have not heard the score to this film, go look for it, because it's some pretty good stuff. I was really impressed with what, and I'm gonna screw this guy's name up, Akira. I'm gonna say his last name.
I think that's...
Yeah. I'm really kudos to him and what he did with the music, because I think that's an integral part to this film, and really kind of sets the mood from the get-go, really, of what you're watching. So kudos to that guy for sure.
Yeah, and there's a reason why they basically adopt his songs, even in like modern Godzilla movies. Yeah. They do reiterations of it. It's so that it's just that good.
Yeah.
And he's even credited with creating the roar as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they take a cello and a glove with like, I think it has like pine tar on it.
Yeah.
And rub their hand on it. It's like scary.
I think that's perfect. I think that I mean, if you didn't know what that was, it's perfect roar. I mean, it just sounds like a roar. And even when you know what it is, when you're not expecting it, like at the beginning of the film, that'll make you sit up and take notice, because that's a pretty terrifying thing. And I think that's what they were going for. And you probably can agree with this, is that it's a roar that you don't hear any other animal make. I mean, this is not a dog or a lion or something. This is almost otherworldly kind of thing. And I think what they came up with and how they do it was a genius move on their part.
Yeah, it's really good, and I think just the sound design in particular is really good. Like you said, you listen to it with headphones on. I think it really immerses you if you have that sound going on, the explosions, the fire, the music, all that working together. So, highly recommend you watch this with a good set of headphones or some sort of surround sound or something like that. I mean, you'll enjoy it just watching on your television speakers, but I don't think you get the same effect.
All right.
So, really cool, and it all builds up to there's the last, I guess, like 20 minutes of the film after Godzilla's gone on his major rampage, and we see just how Tokyo is recovering from this. And this is where the film gets even more effective, in my opinion, just because, I mean, you see people in hospitals, you see people that are burnt, you see children that are crying because their parents are dead, and you see Emiko and Ogata, and they're just like trying to do what they can. And Emiko, earlier in the film, she saw Serizawa demonstrate this thing, the oxygen destroyer, and she's just like, I told him I would not tell anybody, because Serizawa is like, I've just created the new nuclear bomb. If I tell anybody about this, it's going to kill so many people. Somebody's going to use it to destroy. So he's just the scientist that created the wrong thing. But she realizes, and Ogata realizes, this is the only thing that can save the world, basically. So time for the awkward moment, where the boyfriend and the girlfriend show up to talk into the maybe fiance, future husband, to say, I don't really love you, but will you save our butts right now with this machine that you don't really want to use?
Well,
yeah, so put yourself in this guy's shoe. What would you do if you were Serizawa?
You know what? I mean, like I said, I hope to never be in a situation like this. But, you know, you can't be a jerk at this point. You gotta, help out. I mean, I would hope that I would. I would hope that I would be like, you know what? We could all be dead in 5 minutes, so let's, do what we can to survive. And then we'll talk about, who loves who afterwards. I think in a moment like that, you gotta put your pride aside and be the best kind of a person. Because I just think that would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, but he's very hesitant. And it's not just because of the whole awkward thing, even though he does give Ogata, or actually Ogata punches him. He has even more reason to hate Ogata. But he doesn't want to help out because he thinks, use this thing, somebody else is going to get it. And it's going to be bad for the world. He he just has this feeling. So I really love this scene that follows that up. After this little confrontation, they turn on the TV, and we are entreated to this just very haunting scene of all these children in a church. They're singing. We see the destruction. We see everything cut together, and it's very moving as for us, the audience. But it moves Serizawa to say, "Okay, I'll do it." And he goes into the next room, burns his plans, and he's like, "It's gonna be used once. We're gonna use it on Godzilla, and that's it."
Yeah, I think that was something that I did not expect, is the emotional. I mean, obviously, with disaster movies, you're going to have a lot of carnage. You're going to have a lot of stuff, and this film is definitely not a happy ending type film. But the heart and the devastation, and as you mentioned, the kids singing and everything. I mean, it's just it pulls at you. It really makes you think about it, and it's really effective. And that was something that really surprised me, is how emotional this film really gets, especially towards the end, and how much you see what devastation can do for people. I mean, I guess the best thing I could come up with is maybe like 9/11 kind of thing. You see all these people devastated. Well, it's kind of the same thing here, where their whole town, a bunch of people died. I mean, it's a war zone. It's really a war zone after Godzilla comes through. And I think they do a good job of kind of showing the after effects with that, and all the carnage that's left behind, and what kind of emotion you would have after such events. So I thought that was a really good touch on the director's part to show that.
Yeah, and I'm with you. It's such a powerful part. Like I said, even in the crappy American version, it still worked. So it moves Serizawa, it moves us, the viewers. I mean, I feel like that's my town that got destroyed. And I love that connection to 9/11. That's definitely, I think, what they're going for. And as you were saying, it's a war zone. They can tie that to what they lived through. They saw Tokyo destroyed. They saw Nagasaki get destroyed. Hiroshima bombed. So it's very believable. It works really well. The climax, oh my gosh, it's so good. So Ogata and Serizawa are gonna go down. They're gonna activate this oxygen destroyer. See Godzilla. He's waking up, and that's why I like your connection. And I'm glad you made this on just like your second or first viewing. He's just a creature. He's down there sleeping. He's just minding his own business, and they come down there, and he's just like wakes up, and he's coming towards them. No malice. He's just investigating, and they activate the oxygen destroyer. But as they do, Serizawa decides he's going to cut his hose. He's going to cut his lifeline and die down there with him. And that's just really tough to watch, because we care about him. We want him to go, but he's that selfless a person. He does not want anybody to get this thing, and he tells Ogata and Kimiko, I want you guys to be happy. So you guys go and get married. I'm going to die down here with this creature.
Yeah, again, I think it just touches on, the human element and what it is to be a good person, what it is to sacrifice. And that's obviously the ultimate sacrifice, is putting your life ahead of everybody else and saying, they got to live, and I'll take the bullet, as it were, for this. And again, it just tugs at your heartstrings. It makes you really sad for the guy that he's got to make that decision, because I don't think anybody wants to be put in that position. I don't think that's the thing that you're like, man, I hope I get to make that choice one day, because that'd be fun. No, you don't ever want to do that. But for him to do it, and to spare other people, I thought that was a very powerful statement at that point in the film. I mean, like I said a minute ago, this film has a lot more heart in it than I would have expected in a quote-unquote monster movie.
Definitely, and it's the ending. It just does not sit well with me still. I mean, as a kid, it bothered me seeing Godzilla die, but even now, I just feel, I don't know. It's not because I'm a Godzilla fan, but I should be probably happier that he's dying because obviously the world needed him to die, but it's just, I don't like seeing him suffer. It's really emotional for me. And I imagine that is for most viewers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where if you're in the moment, yeah, that's one thing. But when you're a fan of something and you see it not just as this fortune nature, but as a creature, as we mentioned a minute ago, it is tough. It is tough to see something like that. And for him to be that awful and cause that much carnage and stuff, and you still feel sad about him dying, I think that's really interesting. I think that's a credit to the filmmakers there too, because while in that position you should probably feel glad, I think as a viewer and an audience as we are, it is a little bit like, couldn't they like put him in a cage or something? But then again, what cage can hold Godzilla? So what choice did they really have at the end of the day?
Yeah, he can't be caged. But it's the ending, and that's what the whole tone of this film. It's very much, I'm not gonna say it's depressing. I'm just gonna say it's really dark. Like even at the end of the film, after it's all said and done, Yamane's just like, "Yep, it could happen again. There could be another Godzilla." There's no happy ending here, and I guess that's what separates it from the American version. The American version, Steve Martin, which is his name, which is kind of funny, but he says a speech that it's uplifting. It's like it's effective speech. It's probably the best part of the movie, but it says now the world can wake up and live again. So it's a very totally different tone. Like they didn't even want you to end on a happy note in the Japanese version, and I think the whole film is effective because of that. 'Cause it's not one that you want to just put on every day to feel good or something, but it's definitely an experience that you want to relive and try out again.
And I think that you should. I mean, I think this is a very important film in context because, again, this is after World War II. We've talked about the atomic bomb and how Godzilla's compared to it. And, yeah, you're glad when you get through something like that, but you're not going to, like, have a party and a parade and, you got to put your life back together, and that just doesn't happen overnight. And I agree with you. I think the somber ending is probably befitting for a film like this because there's not a lot to be happy about except for maybe surviving.
Yeah, and that's a great way to end this episode. I love talking about this film. Yeah. Like I said, it's one of my favorites of all time. Anytime we can come back to a Godzilla movie, it's just great. I would definitely want to recommend more of the series to you, but also all the viewers / listeners out there. So we'll definitely do more of these. I highly recommend you guys go check this one out. I think it's on HBO Max. But even better than that, it's on YouTube for free right now. You just have to watch some commercials.
Yeah, this is a good film, and I think that you would benefit from watching this. Steve, I really enjoyed talking about this film. We were very anxious to talk about it after I saw it a couple times, and I really hope that everybody at least sees this movie once because it's so much more than just a monster movie. It's definitely especially in times that we live in, I think it's a really interesting film to explore. And if you haven't seen it, guys, please do. Please go see it.
Now for some words of wisdom.
Nature has a way sometimes of reminding man of just how small he is. She occasionally throws up the terrible offsprings of our pride and carelessness to remind us of how puny we really are in the face of a tornado, an earthquake, or a Godzilla. The reckless ambitions of man are often dwarfed by their dangerous consequences. For now, Godzilla, that strangely innocent and tragic monster, has gone to Earth. Whether he returns or not, or is never again seen by human eyes, the things he has taught us remain.
In this episode, we looked at something that means a lot to me, Godzilla. And now, the next episode, we're going to be checking out something that means a lot to Superfosh here. We're going to be watching a film that I've only seen once years ago when it first came out in the theater, but Superfosh really likes it. He's like, you gotta go watch it again. You gotta watch it again. It's Man of Steel, so we're gonna check that out.
Movie that kicked off the DC universe. Hopefully it'll continue. Never know. But yeah, stick around for that, and look forward to talking about that film.
We got that. We got some SuperCaZt extras along the way. Also, stay tuned for some live streams. We'll be doing those periodically. Just thanks for listening. We love you. We'll check you next time on the SuperCaZt.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the SuperCaZt. If you haven't already, be sure to follow us on Twitter at SuperCaZt with a Z. And we also have a Facebook group. Just search SuperCaZt and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn off notifications so you can be notified when we drop a new episode. And thank you so much for being a part of us here on the SuperCaZt.